One of the greatest challenges in addressing mental illness is stigma. Our next guest is a self-professed stigma stomper. In the midst of her career in the public service, she was stricken with mental illness. Thanks to supportive people and services, she came through it. But her concern was for the many others. She bravely, audaciously started her first initiative, Bipolar Babe, speaking to students and decision makers about her experiences. She won the Courage to Come Back award, and now, as executive director of Stigma-Free Society, she works to ensure others get the support and understanding they need. Please welcome Andrea Paquette.
Hello, everybody. It's an absolute honor to be here tonight, and thank you so much for being here. This is little Andrea, 4 years old, popsicle face and all. And what I want to do tonight is share a little piece of her personal story with you. But we're going to fast forward about over 20 years. So I'd like to start when I'm 25 years old and what I was doing. At this time, I ran for the nomination for Member of Parliament. I lost that nomination. However, I had such an inspiration because of it that I drove across Canada by myself in my car. But it wasn't a dream job and a dream life that found me in Ottawa. It was actually bipolar disorder. I wanted to share with you what my first bipolar episode was like, because I remember so many things from this time. So for instance, I remember composing emails, and all of a sudden it felt like there was lightning in my fingertips. I had this burst of creativity so loud in my brain, I just wanted to write. So I wrote 33 pages, single-spaced in 3 hours, and I got a document. And I named it something brilliant. I named it the next federal election strategy to make Andrea Paquette Prime Minister. And I believe that to be as real as this presentation is taking place. I didn't think it was strange. I thought, I'm destined for great things. I would go into coffee shops and act out of character completely, overly happy, and be like, hey, I'm Andrea, who are you? How you doing today? Complete strangers. But there was this one time, there was a man outside of one of the coffee shops, and he was sitting in a wheelchair with no legs. I went up to him, I felt so bad, that I took off my gold diamond ring from my grandmother, and I gave it to him. And I said, you need this more than I do. That's the thing. People often think when you're in a mental health crisis that you're scary, that you're violent, that you're dangerous. But for me, I was more loving, empathetic, and kind than I'd ever been in my entire life. And I experienced something a lot of people don't talk about or want to admit: psychosis. Seeing things, hearing things, believing things that aren't real. For instance, would you believe it if I told you I saw a globe form in front of my face, as real as I could touch it? People will say, how can you see something that's not there? Well, my brain was sick and it had a break with reality, and I couldn't tell the difference between what was real and what wasn't real. As time would go on, I was very lucky that my last 2 friends got me into the psych ward in Ottawa. And then I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I tried to rebuild after that diagnosis. I was in the hospital for about a month. I even drove back across the country again, but it wasn't beautiful. As I got into Victoria, it turned out that I couldn't grocery shop. If I managed to get something home to cook, it felt like building a house, and I couldn't taste my food. And even taking a shower felt like climbing Mount Everest. Everything was so hard. So I medicated myself to sleep for 2 weeks, day and night. I didn't want to see the day at all. And then I attempted suicide. It landed me in the ICU for 3 days, but the good news, I made it. I made it through that. I met an amazing psychiatrist who took me under his wing. I got treatment, a psychiatric nurse, counseling, and I learned that mental health, it's manageable. When I got out of the hospital, I was taking a walk down the road to my house, and then I realized something huge at this point. I had no plan for my life. I didn't know what I was going to do next. So, where would a girl go for healing and for her mental health journey? Well, naturally, I went to South Korea. Did you know if you have a university degree in anything, you could become an English teacher or a university professor? I did both of those things. These kids were so amazing. I didn't even like kids, but when I ended up going to South Korea, I fell in love with these kids. They meant so much to me, and I meant so much to them. And then when I was a university professor in a city called Muan, I was the only white English-speaking woman in a 100,000 population town. And people were like, "Are you isolated? Are you alone?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a rock star." Annyeonghaseyo, Andrea, they all knew who it was. Or they thought I was Drew Barrymore. So that was really great. As time would go on, I was like, what is everyone doing in Canada? So I took a little trip to Victoria, BC. And once again, I don't know if there was a rainbow there that day, but it surely felt like it. As I walked down that harbor, I realized something significant. It wasn't so bad anymore, so I decided I'm going to come home. As I was in Victoria, it was really great because as time went on, I truly decided that I wanted to take a bunch of workshops and seminars. So at one of these workshops, and this facilitator called me up in front of 500 people, like this many people, and said, "What did you get out of the workshop?" And I said, I was shaking, I was red, I couldn't speak in front of people, it was 2009. So I went up, I looked at everybody, and I said, "Hi everybody, my name is Andrea, and in this workshop I've learned that I have bipolar disorder. But I'm not bipolar disorder. I've learned that I have a mental illness, but I'm not defined by that illness, and I can live an amazing life." I knew in that moment it had to be meaningful. I felt courage, an epiphany, and I wanted to share my story. So I created a t-shirt that read, "Bipolar Babe, Stomping Out Stigma." And yes, that is me with blonde hair. Eventually, the website, it was my dream to speak to students, 15 of them in one classroom in Victoria, and now 15,000 across British Columbia. And then over time, I met some amazing supporters in the community, and we created originally the Bipolar Disorder Society of BC, now the Stigma-Free Society. Let me tell you, being president and founder, dreams do come true. I'm also realizing my dream further with my co-founder, Dave Richardson, as we create stigma-free zones across the province. These are places where people are aware of the stigmas, understanding of them, and we are accepting of ourselves and other people with our criteria that create stigma-free zones in schools, organizations, businesses, and geographical areas. I share my message time and time again, and I will keep sharing it the rest of my life because I really want everybody to know and embrace that no matter what our challenges, I believe we can all live extraordinary lives. So thank you.